If the doorbell rings in the middle of the night, don't answer. Submitted by Sleepless Suburbia. I should have learned this lesson 4 years ago, when it would have made a difference. But I was young and foolish, and I was on exchange in a foreign country. And like much of what I learned at the time, it slid into half-forgotten memory, only to be painfully jolted back into consciousness at the most inopportune moments. Because it has become too easy to forget the things I should remember. 4 years ago, I was in Germany doing a thesis on brick Gothic architecture. The university there had been kind enough to arrange accommodation for us Americans too illiterate to go through the system, and I ended up in a beautiful pre-war building that had been subdivided into residential units. Now only the old, German lettering on the facade pointed to its original purpose. Kinderheim. It means children's home. But actually, it means more like orphanage, said my flatmate. I had 5 flatmates in total, and he was the one kind enough to give me a tour when I arrived. It was an immense building, and the necessity of the tour had become self-evident when he took me into the basement. As is common in buildings of this scale, its basement was a maze-like network of subterranean corridors, snaking around maintenance rooms and what I assumed were other apartments, as a couple doors led to side exits in the building. My flatmate led me around an impossible number of turns before we got to the grand finale, a large room with industrial washers and dryers. "Here you can wash and hang up," he had said. This interaction encapsulated all the interactions I had with my roommates, quick and functional. We had no animosity that I could detect, but they were all German, and I think they were self-conscious about their English, though I couldn't find much wrong with it when we did speak. I, on the other hand, did my utmost to fulfill the American stereotype by not bothering to learn their language. Why did it matter if I was back home in a few months? I led a quiet existence, which was more or less how I liked it. On occasion, I did get drunk with that group of Americans that invariably forms when we leave our natural habitat, but I preferred to wander the old town streets and pore over references in the library. In the apartment, I rarely left the confines of my room except to use the bathroom or the kitchen. So it was only a little bit strange when December rolled around, and everyone left for Christmas. We were all students or apprentices in that apartment, and we all had parents to go back to. Apart from me, who was too broke for an intercontinental round trip, I elected to stay alone in that apartment for the 3 weeks, which made up the most wonderful time of the year. I loved it. For these 3 weeks, the apartment became my house. I spread myself into the kitchen, left my boots in the hallway. I populated the freezer with chicken in preparation for the long supermarket holiday. I even left my toothbrush in one of the 2 bathrooms, the smaller one right by the apartment door, whose window looks down on a side entrance to the building. With so much freedom, my pattern became irregular. Some days I spent cooking. Others I spent in bed, only to leave the apartment sometime past midnight on a directionless wander. The town would be beautifully empty, and I was free to go where my boots would take me. This regular irregularity eventually congealed into one blissfully monotonous static. So it was especially jarring when the doorbell rang in the middle of the night. I was asleep, and when I was awoken, I hadn't bothered to check the time. My first response was to be annoyed. It was more a buzzer than a bell, and a loud one at that. Still, it took another ring for me to convince myself I wasn't dreaming. It was a longer one this time. More insistent. At this time of night, I slid out from the covers, dressed only in my underwear. Possibilities rushed through my mind. Was it one of my flatmates who came back early? Had he forgotten his key? My bare feet padded down the long hallway. At the end of it, next to the apartment door, was the intercom system that communicated with the front entrance. I picked up the receiver and put it to my ear. "Hello?" Involuntarily looked over my shoulder. I hadn't turned on the lights, perhaps out of habit from when I wasn't alone in the apartment. But I was alone. No response came from the other end of the intercom, just static interference. I tried again. "Hello? Is there anybody there?" Then I could hear the sound of a woman's voice, crying. I froze, unprepared for this eventuality. 2 of my flatmates were women. Could something have happened? The crying voice further materialized into words, German words. It was a stream of desperate syllables. I couldn't understand anything. Mentally I cursed myself for not making more of an effort to learn the language, before launching into the only German I knew. "Wie bitte? Anna? Is that you?" A confused, "Huh?" came from the other end. Or was it a sob? I tried it again. "Franzi?" There was a pause. Then, as if spurred by the list of 2 unfamiliar names, the crying started again. It was louder. Another barrage of unintelligible syllables through the sobbing, frustration at not being understood crescendoing her voice into a shout. But this time, I could pick out one word, even with my limited understanding. Hilfa. Help. I then realized that I wasn't hearing her voice solely through the intercom. I took a step into the bathroom. I could hear her sobbing coming in through the bathroom window, the one that looked down on the side door to the basement. That meant she wasn't at the front entrance, where the intercom was. Maybe it was because of this detail that I didn't open the door immediately. I was sure that the intercom was only at the front entrance. The cord was already stretched to its limit, so I set the receiver down to look out the window. It slipped from my cold fingers and clattered down to the tile floor. I left it there, opening the window to crane my head. It was no use, too dark, and the window was too far out to see the side door. I closed the window. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was an intercom at the side entrance. I went back to press the button that would let her in, but I stopped. She was crying really loudly, obviously desperate. And I was a half-naked foreigner. I ran back to my room to put on some clothes. It took much longer than it should have to find the sweatpants I discarded on the floor, and there wasn't a clean t-shirt in the closet. I dug one out of the dirty laundry hamper, and as I came back into the hallway, I knew that I must have taken too much time. No crying woman would wait this long at a stranger's door before moving on to other options. I got to the intercom and pressed the button. The buzzer sounded, signifying the front door was unlocked. But it was too far away for me to hear whether someone opened it, and if the woman was indeed at the side entrance to the basement, I definitely would not hear it open. I turned the knob and stuck my head out. The hallway was dark. She was gone, she must be. If she had come in, she would have flicked on the house lights. Unless she was distraught, vision blurred by tears, and didn't know where the switch was because she was in a strange apartment building. Come on, man, think. I swung the door open. But again, I stopped. I didn't have the key on me, and the door would lock automatically. I was alone in the apartment, so if I locked myself out, I wouldn't be able to help myself. Much less a woman suffering from God knows what. I needed to go back to my room. Just then, I heard voices. They ricocheted off the hard concrete walls of the stairway. I couldn't tell if they came from upstairs or downstairs. There were two of them. One was the woman, sobs still in her voice, but she was calmer now, in conversation. She sniffled as she spoke. The other was also female, but lower pitched and calmer. Her questions seemed confused, as if she had just been woken up. I eavesdropped further, but the muffled echoes just sounded like German to me. I went back inside, closed the door behind me. This was probably for the better. Not only did she find someone to help, but someone to actually understand her. It wasn't a job for me. When I slid back into the warmth of my bed, I realized I had been shivering. Strange events on a cold night. I did not expect myself to find sleep anytime soon, but I did. And when I woke up in the morning, I had already forgotten the incident. It became one of those dreams that fell between fantasy and nightmare, the ones so slightly bizarre that the waking mind forgets them, until strange details are triggered by moments of déjà vu. Even then it's unclear whether this fragment of the past is real, or just a half-remembered dream. I had a Skype call with my parents scheduled that next afternoon, their morning. It was just to say hi, Merry Christmas, wish I could be there. They like to make Christmas into an all-day thing, and catching them for a moment before they started ended up far less tiring than being there in person. After I hung up, my brain occupied itself with other matters of waking life. What movie to watch today, whether or not to roast the chicken I had in the freezer. How to enjoy the last 6 days of being alone in the apartment. I did not remember the incident from the night before, even when everyone came back for the new semester, and an ambulance took the body away. I had decided to walk home from a morning class that day. The ice underfoot hadn't yet been melted by the winter sun. I only looked up in time to see it pull out of the driveway. There was a group of neighbors standing at the front entrance, gossiping. One seemed to be crying. In the fray, I noticed my flatmate, the one who had given me the tour on my first day. He beckoned me over. "It's good that it's a cold winter this year," he said, in his German accent. "What do you mean?" "Marie from upstairs. Her flatmate came back today and found her. She was dead since a week." Nobody could give a straight answer to how Marie from upstairs had died. "She suffocated in the night," someone said. "No, it was suicide, she did it in the bathtub. It certainly couldn't be murder, because in the months I remained in the apartment, no cop came knocking. And being one of the few actually in the building at the time, I would be a person of interest." I was as morbidly curious as the next, but it never seemed a good time to ask. "Excuse me, do you speak English? Can you tell me how that girl died?" Nobody voiced these questions, not even the police, it seemed. As time passed, so did the curiosity, until she was just the girl who died. Death happened all the time. Today, tomorrow, and so on. It was sad and shocking, but explainable. I didn't attend the funeral. Instead, I started an affair with a classmate of mine, an American girl, then went back to Indiana to complete my thesis. I got an A, got a car, got a job, got more debt. I rented a small apartment on the cheaper side of town so Lauren could come over when she could make the 6-hour drive. Life was good. But every time the doorbell rang, I would start to shiver. It was Lauren that noticed it, the first time she came to visit. She had parked her car and rung the bell, and I came downstairs to pull her into a kiss. She grabbed my hand. "You're shivering. Are you nervous?" "Am I? I guess I'm just cold." "Come here. I know how to warm you up." She really did. We decided to stay in bed all day and order in. When the doorbell rang, I was too tired and naked to answer, so she put on a t-shirt and got the pizza. When she came back in, she stared at me. "Are you okay?" I think it was this moment that started her habit of studying me. Every now and then I would catch her staring at me while I was preoccupied with whatever I was doing. It wasn't the way a girlfriend would look at her boyfriend, more like an eye through a microscope, watching a bacteria culture. Wondering how it moved, and why it wasn't moving now. We broke up when the lockdown hit. According to her, we broke up because I was inattentive and emotionally distant. But she had been cold for a few weeks, and the virus was a convenient catalyst for ending things. With her gone, I was once again left to my own devices. I got laid off. I had nobody to adjust my schedule to. I spent my days cooking and sitting on the couch, chasing every nostalgia that came to me. With her gone, I had nobody to ring my doorbell, to come up and remind me of distant memories, of a time that must have been important to somebody, somewhere. But now a memory is emerging to the surface, a forgotten dream that has to be written down before it slips the mind again, the kind that can only be recalled through a passing moment of déjà vu. And now that I can remember more and more, I'm starting to be scared. Because the doorbell has been ringing every night,